In the modern landscape of 2026, we are constantly bombarded by the theatrics of affluence. Social media and digital marketing have curated a version of success that is loud, visual, and immediate. We see the luxury vehicles, the designer labels, and the curated travel experiences, and our brains wired for tribal comparison conclude that this is what wealth looks like. However, as a rational analyst, I must tell you that true wealth is fundamentally invisible. It is the non-event. It is the car you didn't upgrade, the luxury watch you didn't buy, and the high-interest debt you never incurred. To understand this, we must apply first-order versus second-order thinking. The first-order thinker sees a $100,000 car and assumes the owner is wealthy. The second-order thinker realizes that the owner now has $100,000 less in productive capital, or worse, a massive liability that drains their monthly cash flow. In the discipline of value investing, we care about intrinsic value, not market signaling. Real wealth is the quiet margin, the widening gap between what you earn and what you choose to consume. It is the cumulative result of thousands of invisible decisions to prioritize future autonomy over present-day vanity. The silent crash of the middle class occurs when individuals confuse consumption with net worth. If you are building wealth correctly, it often feels boring. It feels uneventful. There are no bank alerts that play fanfare when you reach a milestone. Instead, there is simply a gradual decrease in financial anxiety and an increase in optionality. If you find yourself making progress that no one else can see, take heart. You aren't just saving money, you are constructing a fortress of capital. In this video, we will look past the noise and examine the structural signals that prove you are secretly becoming rich, even if the world around you remains unaware. To build a skyscraper that lasts a century, an engineer does not design it to withstand a typical day. They design it for the 100-year flood, the unprecedented earthquake, and the structural fatigue of time. In the discipline of value investing, we call this the margin of safety. Applying this mental model to your personal finance transforms your perspective from budgeting to structural integrity. Most people live at the edge of their financial capacity. They build a bridge that can hold exactly 10,000 pounds and then drive a 10,000-pound truck across it. One gust of wind, one job loss, one medical bill, and the bridge collapses. The first sign that you are secretly getting rich is that you have stopped building fragile systems. You have recognized that your spending gap, the distance between your income and your lifestyle, is your primary source of potential energy. In engineering terms, this is your factor of safety. If you earn $10,000 but live on $6,000, you have a 40% margin of safety. This margin is what allows you to remain rational when everyone else is panicking. It is the buffer that turns a global economic crisis into a market sale for your investments. Furthermore, we must address the concept of entropy in your finances. In thermodynamics, entropy is the natural tendency of a system to move toward disorder and energy loss. In finance, entropy manifests as lifestyle creep. Without constant, intentional discipline, your expenses will naturally expand to consume your income. The person getting quietly rich treats their baseline lifestyle as a fixed constant, while their income is a variable. By resisting the urge to upgrade every time the numbers on their paycheck increase, they are effectively fighting financial entropy. When you look at your bank account and feel bored because the numbers are simply stacking up without being spent, you are not missing out. You are increasing the structural load capacity of your life. You are moving from a state of financial fragility to financial anti-fragility, where stress and volatility actually make you stronger because you have the capital to capitalize on them. This engineering mindset is the hallmark of the quiet elite. In the world of professional capital allocation, debt is a neutral tool. When used correctly by a business, it is leverage a fulcrum that allows you to move a much larger object with less force. But for the individual, debt is almost always a chain. The fundamental difference lies in the net present value, NPV, of the purchase. If you borrow money to buy a productive asset, a business or real estate that generates a return higher than the interest rate, you are using arithmetic to your advantage. If you borrow money to buy a consumer good, a television, a vacation, or a luxury garment, you are performing a value-destroying transaction. To understand why the middle class stays poor, we must apply the mental model of opportunity cost. When you carry a balance on a credit card at a 22% interest rate, you are effectively shorting your own future. You are betting against your ability to build wealth. Every dollar you pay in interest is a dollar that could have been invested in a compounding engine. If you pay $500 a month in interest on consumer debt, the true cost isn't $500. Using the rule of compounding at a standard 10% market return, that $500 monthly leak represents nearly $1 million in lost wealth over a 30-year career. The sign that you are secretly getting rich is a shift in your internal accounting. You no longer ask, "Can I afford the monthly payment?" Instead, you ask, "What is the total cost of ownership And what is the opportunity cost of this capital? You recognize that consumer debt is a Lollapalooza of bad decisions. It encourages you to overpay for an item, it charges you for the privilege of doing so, and it locks you into a lifestyle you haven't yet earned. In my analysis, I look for individuals who have achieved debt neutrality. This is the point where your passive interest income from investments exceeds any interest you owe on productive debt, like a mortgage. When you reach this stage, you have effectively decoupled your lifestyle from the banking system's predatory cycles. You are no longer a renter of your own life. You are the owner. If you find yourself aggressively paying down high-interest debt and refusing to finance toys, you are winning a war of attrition that 90% of the population is losing. You are reclaiming your future, one interest payment at a time. In the theater of modern finance, the word investment has been hijacked by speculators. To the rational analyst, buying a volatile asset in the hopes of selling it to a greater fool next week is not investing. It is entertainment. Real investment is the disciplined allocation of capital into productive assets, businesses, land, or intellectual property that generate real-world value and cash flow. The hallmark of someone secretly getting rich is the psychological shift from being a consumer to being an owner. The primary driver of this wealth is the compounding engine. Charlie Munger often described the first rule of compounding as never interrupt it unnecessarily. This sounds simple, but it is intellectually demanding. It requires you to overcome hyperbolic discounting, our biological urge to value a $100 stake today more than the $10,000 that same capital could become in the future. When you invest, you are essentially deploying capital soldiers to work for you. In 2026, where technology and automation have increased the efficiency of global corporations, owning a piece of that productivity is the only way to outpace inflation. To succeed, you must operate within your circle of competence. Most people fail because they stray into areas they don't understand, chasing hot tips or complex derivatives. The quiet millionaire, however, embraces the boring. They understand that a diversified portfolio of high-quality companies held for decades is the most proven wealth creation machine in history. They don't check their accounts daily because they aren't trading tickers. They are owning businesses. They view a market downturn not as a crisis, but as a margin of safety opportunity, a chance to buy more productive capacity at a discount. The second mental model we must employ here is time arbitrage. The market is dominated by institutional players focused on the next 90 days. If you can focus on the next 90 months, you have an unfair advantage. You are arbitrager of patience. While the crowd is panicked by the noise of interest rate fluctuations or geopolitical headlines, the quiet investor is focused on the yield on cost. They understand that the price of an asset is what you pay, but the value is the discounted stream of all future cash it will produce. If you have reached the stage where you find a 10% annual return on a boring index fund, more exciting than a 100% maybe on a speculative coin, you have leveled up. You have moved from the impatience tax bracket to the patience dividend bracket. You are no longer working for money. You are building a system where money works for you. This is the engine of wealth. It starts slow, it looks uneventful for years, but eventually, the weight of the compounding becomes an unstoppable force. In the age of digital influencers, passive income is often marketed as a lifestyle of beaches and laptops. But to the value investor, passive income is simply the yield on invested capital. It is the mathematical result of a system you have built or bought. To understand this, we must employ systems thinking. Most people are trapped in a linear income model. They trade 1 hour of their life for a set amount of currency. This is inherently limited by the physics of time. You only have 24 hours in a day. Wealth, however, is built in the non-linear model, where your income is decoupled from your physical presence. There are only two ways to generate true passive income. You must either own financial capital or intellectual, digital capital. Both require a massive upfront loading of effort or money. When you see a dividend check arrive in your account, you aren't being paid for doing nothing today. You are being paid for the risk you took and the consumption you deferred 5 years ago. This is the delayed gratification mental model in its purest form. The sign that you are secretly getting rich is that you have stopped chasing side hustles that require more of your time and started building systems that require more of your discipline. You recognize that $100 in passive dividends is structurally superior to $200 in overtime pay. Why? Because the dividend has a zero marginal cost of production. It doesn't require your breath, your muscles, or your presence to exist. It frees up your most valuable asset, your cognitive surplus. As an analyst, I look for the crossover point the moment your passive cash flow covers your basic survival expenses. This is the definition of financial autonomy. Once you reach this stage, work becomes a choice, not a necessity. But the trap most fall into is trying to reach the harvest without the planting. They look for shortcuts like high-yield scams or unsustainable passive schemes. The quiet investor understands that passive income is a byproduct of capital allocation. You buy the machine, you maintain the machine, and the machine produces the output. If you are currently reinvesting every dollar of your passive income to buy more income-producing machines, you are in the exponential phase of wealth. You are not just earning money, you are building a self-sustaining ecosystem that will eventually grant you the ultimate luxury, the ability to own your time. The most dangerous moment in an investor's journey is not a market downturn. It is a significant increase in income. Most people believe that earning more money is the solution to their financial problems. However, as an analyst, I observe a different reality. For 90% of the population, a raise in salary is merely a catalyst for a raise in consumption. This is lifestyle creep, and it is driven by a Lollapalooza effect, a convergence of several psychological biases acting in the same direction to produce a catastrophic financial result. First, we have social proof. When your peers move into larger homes or drive luxury SUVs, your brain interprets this as the correct behavior for your new income bracket. Second, we have contrast effect. Compared to your new $200,000 salary, a $1,000 monthly car payment seems small, even though it is mathematically significant to your long-term compounding. Finally, we have hedonic adaptation, where the joy of a new purchase fades rapidly, forcing you to buy something even more expensive just to maintain the same level of satisfaction. The sign that you are secretly getting rich is that you have developed lifestyle inflation immunity. You treat your baseline expenses as an engineering constant, while your rising income is a variable dedicated entirely to capital allocation. If you earn a 20% raise and your first instinct is to increase your automated brokerage contribution by that same 20%, you have mastered your own psychology. You are no longer a renter of status. You are an accumulator of freedom. Charlie Munger always warned against envy, calling it a silly sin because it's the only one you can't have any fun at. The quiet millionaire understands that keeping up with the Joneses is a race where the winner still ends up broke. They recognize that relative wealth, how you rank against your neighbor, is a distraction. What matters is absolute autonomy, how much of your life you actually own. If you find yourself indifferent to the flexing of others on social media, you have achieved a rare level of intellectual independence. You are making decisions based on your internal scoreboard, not the external one. This behavioral discipline is the moat that protects your wealth. In 2026, where every algorithm is designed to trigger your impulse to spend, the ability to say enough is the ultimate competitive advantage. You aren't depriving yourself of a better life. You are protecting the capital that will eventually buy you a life that no amount of luxury goods can match. The journey toward wealth is often framed as a race to a specific number. However, the school of value investing teaches us a different lesson. The number is merely a proxy for independence. Charlie Munger once remarked that his passion wasn't for Ferraris. It was for the independence to do what he wanted, when he wanted, with whom he wanted. This is the ultimate luxury. In the discipline of finance, we call this the inversion principle. Instead of asking, how can I look rich? The rational actor asks, how can I avoid being dependent on others for my survival? When you reach the stage where you're capital soldiers, the investments you've methodically built generate enough cash flow to sustain your lifestyle, you have decoupled your survival from your labor. You have moved from a transactional life to an owner's life. This transition is the most profound shift a human being can experience in a capitalist society. It is the moment you move from being a cog in the economic machine to being the operator of your own machine. To summarize our roadmap, we protect our margin of safety by living below our means. We view debt through the lens of opportunity cost, refusing to be chained by consumer liabilities. We feed the compounding engine by owning productive assets within our circle of competence. We ignore the Lollapalooza of social proof and resist the siren call of lifestyle creep. If you have seen these signs in your life, if money has become boring, if time has become more valuable than status, and if you feel a sense of ownership over your future, then you are already secretly rich. The bank account balance is simply catching up to the reality of your character. In the volatile landscape of 2026, stay rational, stay disciplined, and remember that wealth is not what you spend, it is what you keep, what you own, and the freedom you protect.